this is a big warning to any developers doing code challenges or code screens or doing take-home assignments while you're interviewing for companies or looking for a programming job. Be careful with the code that recruiters send to you, because it just might be a virus. And this happened to me just recently when I was contacted by a recruiter who sent me malicious code. Okay, so there was a small segment in the server which she sent where it would fetch data from a foreign website and it would directly execute whatever was returned using eval. Okay, so this would grant them complete access to my computer, letting them do God knows what, maybe implanting a root virus or something, and um, letting them steal my files or modify stuff or delete stuff or whatever they wanted to do. So I'm going to describe what happened. I'm going to show you how sophisticated this attack was. And it's still ongoing. I'm going to report this to LinkedIn because this is a fake recruiter. This is not a real person, I think. Okay, Ingrid Bueter. I was contacted by her, and basically everything was bog standard until I got to the code where I saw the actual remote code execution exploit. So you're going to learn how to stay safe from this and be wary when people send you code that you need to execute on your device. So it all begins with this single message from Ingrid Bueter, who basically says, okay, we're doing a blockchain real estate project, and if you're looking, we'd be happy to interview you. And I've been contacted by recruiters with this exact kind of format millions of times. This is pretty standard stuff, listing out the tech that I need, and just the standard stuff. Even the M dashes, like most recruiters nowadays just let AI generate their intro texts and job descriptions and so on. So this did not smell fishy at all. Looking at the person on LinkedIn, you see, this is a fishy thing, which I should have noticed. Have you ever seen a recruiter with less than 500 connections? I don't think so. And this thing oscillated between the days. At some point it was 410. At some point it was like 383 or something. So just looking at the account. So this is a thing that I should have noticed. And I would say this is the first thing that you need to look at. Okay. Why does this person have so few connections? They're supposed to be doing recruiting for this company, right? Yeah, it does say, okay, staff, product manager, whatever, but like if she's doing recruiting, then she's going to have more connections. And look at the experience that she has, more than 10 years. You don't think they would have built up more connections? I mean, I do have less connections with 10 years of development experience, but that's because I'm a weirdo who deleted all their, LinkedIn connections in like 2023. But anyway, so even has posts, reposted this stuff, and then has a lot of activity. Okay, featured posts here, TRM Labs. So this all looks legit. Okay, so I go ahead. This is the first thing that I do, by the way. I check their LinkedIn, and pretty box standard stuff all around. So nothing to point fingers to at this point. So I go ahead and reply, okay, I'm interested, send over the JD, and let's see where we can go. She sends over a PDF, and this PDF looks like this, basically. Again, bog standard, okay? So the only thing that stood out to me was how short the wall of text at the of the header was. Usually when they send you a JD or when you see a job description listed on a website, there's like 7 or 8 paragraphs of why this company is so special, how we do hiring. Every company's things are special, obviously, so on and so forth. So there's this giant wall of text which you need to read. But here it's just 2 lines, so this kind of stood out to me. But nothing too fishy for now. We got responsibilities, we got the requirements here as well, like showing it's not exactly my stack. It's like 90% there, but the match was it also stood out to me. They're strangely using all the stuff that I was also using. I mean, the stuff that I did use was pretty standard, but like it's rare to see this exact kind of match. They didn't even do 100% match. They did like a 90% match. I assumed that this job description was generated especially based on my LinkedIn, and so was the initial message. But anyway, so Even the stuff with like sometimes recruiters put nice to haves in the requirements, so you can see right here. And these slight mistakes were also, I think, put in or either generated by the AI because it's trained on average data, which is sometimes contains mistakes, right? So um, this basically was like, oh, okay, this is pretty standard stuff. Looking at the next page, you see, you know, normal, everything normal up to this point. Okay, so let's keep moving. So I sent her back a PDF, the same PDF, but highlighted my skills, right? So in green, I have the stuff which I do have competence in, and in red, I've never had any experience. And I noted that, my Next.js is not good because I've only toyed with it in my free time. Okay, so moving on, she says, it's a perfect match. Even the apostrophe is missing. Okay, so this is a real human. Wow, awesome. So good compensation. The interview process, okay, we do a take home for 1 hour, assessment, then the vibe check, then system design, then offer an onboarding. What stood out to me is they have a good compensation, but nowadays every single company more or less has like 6 or even 7 steps that you need to go through, like all these hoops that you need to jump through in order to get employed. Sometimes I just go ahead and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. Okay. We as developers have to basically, if they're having you, sling code like a monkey all over the place, they're abusing you, and you should not take that much abuse. But the thing is, companies which have, huge compensations or which have a really good, name to them, they can do that because they know, maybe you're not going to bother jumping through all these hoops, but there's going to be 1,000 other developers the next day who are willing to do that. People do that for Google, people do that for Meta, for OpenAI, for whatever. So what seemed strange to me is, wow, there's only 4 steps for a compensation like this and a fully remote job. This has to be like, this is kind of like an anomaly, okay? But still, I didn't immediately think this is fake or whatever. So I go ahead and say, okay, I'll be able to block out an hour on Thursday, so I'll do the assessment, and she sends me an assessment. Okay, I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is already a message which I sent, at which point, I had already discovered that it's a virus, and I didn't want to sort of raise any flags. And so at this point, I already knew the jig was up, but we'll get to that later. I'm going to show you what the Notion document looks like. So this is it. Node.js Engineer Code Challenge. Public. They state that it's public because, maybe some flags, you would raise some flags if you saw that, that's strange. They sent me a code challenge, but everyone else has access to this, right? So other people would be able to prepare in advance or do some stuff like that, right? So that's why they put public here probably. Anyway, looking at the document, very standard stuff, asks you to clone a repository, then here's how you install and start the server. This is the structure of the server. This is how the API is designed, okay? And this is your task. A rate limiter, oh boy, how creative. I probably have done like some rate limiters 6 or 7 times already. Anyway, so it describes how it handles, auth and security, stuff like that, okay? So it tells you to go to this repository. I'm going to show you what that repository looks like. So assessment requirements, basically the same stuff, but with less detail, as in the Notion document, and everything looks very box standard. The one thing that tipped me off was, okay, 2 weeks ago, did they start recruiting just 2 weeks ago, or did they decide to start this batch like 2 weeks ago? And looking at the account itself, it's like, why would the logo be so ugly? It's like there's all these challenges here, right? So after I found out that this is fake, these are actually challenges. So these are viruses. I could look, I mean, we can look into this later, but if you open this, it's probably going to be remote code execution just like it was in my case. So I cloned the repository, and let me show you. So I cloned the repository, and there's a lot of files. Okay, so these are the screenshots that I'm showing you right now. So this is Ingrid Bueter herself. Okay, I'm going to close the screenshots. I made changes to the repository here. There's a lot of code. Okay, look at all this stuff. why do we need so much code in a code screen? Okay, if a developer was making this, it's like there's too much code in here. Why do I need to? You're expecting me to read through everything here? Anyway, so I looked through the code. I npm installed. I'm so foolish. I installed the dependencies. You got to be careful there as well, because they might have a few dependencies which run hooks when you install them, and that could fetch stuff from a website and execute code or do whatever. I looked into the dependencies, everything looked okay. Okay, so that's the only reason why I did npm install, is because, okay, all the dependencies are recognizable. Even the validator was kind of, what's this? I looked it up, it's pretty standard. Okay, everything looks okay. Now I'm about to do npm start, but then I start looking through the code, okay? And somewhere in there, tucked in, I saw this check region file. And if you look at this, it looks like, oh, it's checking the IP of the request. And this is probably some kind of middleware, right? So it pings IP checker with, a made up secret. So we send over, a request. Weird why you would do this way, but whatever. And then it fetches the data. We swallow the error, and then eval. What is eval doing here? You're grabbing data from a website and putting it straight into eval. And if the code happens to have an error, you're swallowing the error so that I don't notice. This is remote code execution, okay? You're getting data from this website and then evaling it directly. Eval should never, ever be in a JavaScript server, okay? This is crazy, okay? Then I go ahead and look at, I sent a request just to see what it would send back, okay? Obviously, I didn't eval any code that it sent back. So this is the response, okay? Does this look like what an IP checker would return? Does this look like a normal request sent by a server, which is not malicious? Does this look like a normal request? Or does this look like an obfuscated payload for a virus meant to steal your data or steal your files or steal your crypto wallets? So all of this is encoded in hexadecimal. And this is basically like obfuscator IO output. So what happens is, what I think happened is they have this virus, they obfuscated, they wrote it in JavaScript, they obfuscated using obfuscator IO, and it basically creates a giant array which gets shifted and rotated so that you don't see what it's actually doing. And then they sent this back. Even Emacs can't tell how big this file is. You want to know how big this file is? I'm going to show you. So that's response.txt. Yeah. Is 3.4 megabytes. Is that normal? No, it's not normal. This is a virus, okay? So this Ingrid person sent me a link to a Notion document, very standard stuff. Go over to GitHub, and it executes code remotely if you start the server. Thank God I didn't start the server. So this is a big warning to everyone. Be careful. Any code that you run on your device, check it in advance, okay? And maybe ask them questions about it. Maybe poke and prod and see, okay, why is this repository this way, so on and so forth. This account, for all I know, is completely fake, and it's some hacker trying to hook developers who are looking for jobs. Here you can see, by the way, that 3 other people have gotten hooked, and they're like, oh, I just submitted a pull request here. They generated their answers using AI anyway, but like these people have been pwned. They have viruses on their computers, okay? So I made this repository here. I'm gonna link it, which analyzes the virus. Like, I'm not gonna bother with deobfuscating the stuff. You can go ahead and look at response.txt if you want to, but this basically holds all the data that you might need to analyze the virus. So be careful. I almost got pwned, and I have like $200 of Monero, and then my wallet lives on my computer. They would have stolen my treasures. But anyway, it's like $200, not that big a deal, but they would steal my files and do whatever they want. So you got to be careful. In this age of AI, anyone can make you believe that they're not a bot or a Chinese virus or something. So yeah, that's it. Stay safe out there.